Yeah, I just wanted to go through the 17 goals uh, that the United Nations is aiming to achieve by the year 2030. These are called Sustainable Development Goals, sometimes referred to as SDGs. Okay, SDGs. Uh, so when you hear about Agenda 2030, they want to achieve all these 17 goals. Okay, so I'll go through each one of them, not necessarily in a lot of detail. Some of them in detail, yes, but some of them not in so much detail. Um, so I don't know if there's actually anyone who actually believes that the UN is a force for good and that these goals are good for humanity. Uh, I've got bad news for you if you believe that. The truth is that this has got nothing to do with making the world a better place for human beings. This is about enslaving human beings and reducing the population. Um, Ultimately, this is the goal. Okay, there's some who even believe this, that we should save the planet by killing ourselves. Okay, and of course you've got the likes of um, Jacques Attali, who wrote a book called Verbatim, in which he said the future will be about finding a way to reduce the population. I've shared all that with you before, but this is what they want ultimately, is to reduce the population, and that's what even the the scamdemic was about. Yeah, so I just wanted to share this PowerPoint with you. It said this is a newspaper called The Sovereign Independent from June 2011, and it said here that there was going to be depopulation, which was going to be done through forced vaccination, the zero carbon solution. This is a newspaper that was printed saying this. Okay, this is not me saying. Let me just read what it says here. It says the world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. This was Bill Gates, and that this quote is actually taken from a TED talk that Bill Gates did over 10 years ago. So let me just share a few more slides with you. Here we have a Bayer executive. Bayer is a company that produces pesticides. I think it looks like they might be involved in pharmaceuticals as well. He said mRNA shots. Of course, the M stands for messenger. Messenger RNA shots are gene therapy marketed as vaccines to gain public trust. And he actually said, his name is Stefan Ulrich, he said, we probably would have had a 95% refusal rate for these shots 2 years ago, but the pandemic and marketing of the injections as vaccines, in quotes, has made them popular with the public, said Stefan Ulrich. What is the purpose of these vaccines? Okay, let me share something interesting with you. So here we have a comic book from 2017. As you can see that the date, I put that date in there just to remind myself what the date was. This comic book was from 2017. Remember that all this, if you go back to the newspaper here, this is from 2011. This is from 2017, all before this pandemic happened. Okay. So on this page, it says here, this is the public cheering this character here called coronavirus. Remember, that's the name they gave to the pandemic. They said it was called coronavirus. Once again, the date 2017. The public are saying here in this comic, here comes our favorite, straight from Rome. Who comes from Rome? We shall see in a minute. The champion with numerous victories. The one they call the masked Auriga, the great coronavirus in capital letters and in bold, and his faithful bacillus. Okay, they're talking about coronavirus. It's this chap here with the mask. Now, of course, everyone was wearing masks during this pandemic. Coronavirus being mentioned in 2017. Of course, this pandemic, of which they said the virus was called coronavirus, actually started in China in November 2019, but the whole world was put under lockdown in March 2020. Next page. It will show us who this character is on the next page. Okay, it says bifidus. The goals. This is the public speaking. They won. 3 cheers for obelisk. Hip hip. Hey, look at coronavirus. He's taking off his mask. But it's not coronavirus. Caesar, yes, it is Caesar. This is Caesar speaking. Who else could save Rome's honor? And who is Caesar nowadays is the Pope of Rome. Okay, so what is this comic book saying? It's saying that the ones behind the coronavirus uh, scamdemic was the Catholic Church. Okay, for more proof, I'll show you this coin here. Um, this coin shows emblems of the Catholic Church, and it shows someone on the reverse side of the coin being jabbed. Okay, and this is a coin. It's a 20 euro coin. Okay, that was produced by the Vatican. Um, And who else was involved in all this? So-called Dr. Fauci, and we have his wife next to him here. He was actually given an award by the Jesuits, by the way. This is what it's a certificate, as you can see. I don't know if that's very clear, but there's a picture of Ignatius Loyola on the certificate that Fauci was given. Of course, Fauci was Jesuit trained. I've got a video of him actually saying that he went to a Catholic university, a Jesuit, more specifically Jesuit university. He was Jesuit trained. He was awarded for what he did during the scamdemic, even though we know that uh, a lot of what happened during the scamdemic was illegal. So if we just go back to what I wanted to share here about the SDGs. Number one goal is no poverty. So basically, everything in these SDG goals is actually the opposite of what they say. Okay, so when you read something and it sounds good, just remember it's the opposite of what they say. Remember that a snake, the tongue on a snake is forked. So it's almost like this is double speak. Okay, you can't believe anything that comes out of the mouth of a snake. They say no poverty. What they mean is they want to destroy the middle class, which was brought about by the Protestant Reformation. They want to make most of the world poor. Basically, go back to the days when we had two classes in society, the rich and the poor. That's why even in one of my other videos that I did recently, it spoke about the rich in the future, the rich being the only ones who would be able to fly, whilst the poor will be how do you say, visiting other parts of the world on their VR headsets. Okay, so this is what this is talking about. It's about making everyone poor. The United Nations doesn't care about you or me. They wouldn't try to end poverty. What they want to do is they want to put everyone on the same plane, make everyone poor. Okay. Number two, zero hunger. Well, they're actually causing hunger with everything that's going on with the war with Iraq, because it's resulted in the cost of fuel going up, and then the cost of fuel goes up, it has a knock-on effect on other products, especially food. So food is becoming very expensive. Even food here in Zimbabwe has gone up. This and what how is the United Nations to blame for some of this? Well, the United Nations was allegedly set up to stop wars, but since the establishment, they haven't stopped even one war. Okay, so is the world a better place today after the United Nations was created and after all these goals were brought about? No, the world is a much worse place. There's a lot of suffering going on, a lot of homelessness, and there are many who are struggling financially who can't even afford to pay their rent and pay for their cars so that they can drive their cars to work to make a living. Recently, there's a man who burnt a factory in America. I think it was like a massive warehouse where tissue was stored. He burnt the place because his employers were not paying him. So people are struggling out there, even in the so-called most advanced country in the world. Number three, good health and well-being. Well, how is this good health? How is the forced vaccination of everyone good health? All this, and remember this bear executive who said that the vaccines were disguised sorry, the what did you call them? These injections were presented as vaccines because he knew that 95% of people would refuse to take it. This is not um, good health or the promotion of good health. Remember that the first rule of medicine is do no harm. You're not even supposed to pierce the skin to put toxins there. Uh, so this is the opposite. They want everyone to be sick so that the pharmaceutical industry can also make money from them. And as Jacques Attali said, Jacques Attali, by the way, is a member of the Bilderberg Group. It says here, he said the future will be about finding a way to reduce the population. So at, I also mentioned in one of my videos, and this is quite well known, that in Canada, one of the options when you phone for uh, for medical assistance is, I think it's option number 5. The last I heard it was option number 5, that they actually will offer you medically assisted suicide. It's called MAID, medical assistance in dying is what it's called, MAID. They actually offer you the option of being helped to commit suicide, and it's actually happening. I think there's over 100,000 Canadians who've been helped to commit suicide. None of this is got anything to do with good health and well-being. It's the opposite. Uh, Quality education, no, it's indoctrination. For instance, with um, this, which I've shared in a separate video. I don't know why my folders are not opening up, but I've shared this whole thing about space travel. And many children are being taught that this is true, that space travel is true. Remember that Goebbels said that propaganda works best when those who are being manipulated are confident that they are acting on their own free will. So if you talk to those who believe in space travel, they'll actually laugh at you and think, if you believe that the earth has a dome over it and that there's no such thing as space travel, they'll laugh at you and think that you're the crazy one. Yet they don't realize that what they are saying is based on the indoctrination that they've received through the schooling system. Okay. So quality education is actually, just think of it as indoctrination. Number 5, gender equality. Actually, there are only 2 genders, and of course, even the word gender now is being defined as something else. Say gender is how you feel inside, whereas sex is what you are physically. And now they're saying that there are many different types of genders. So when they talk about gender equality, is they are introducing these new, in quotes, genders, and these new genders are being given more rights. Those who claim to be of these new genders are being given more rights than the male and females, the traditional understanding of what gender is. Someone who calls themselves a man or a woman, they don't have as many rights as someone who claims to be of one of these new genders. Okay, so gender equality is gender inequality. That's what they want to promote. It's the opposite. Everything is the opposite. Clean water and sanitation is the opposite. They may provide people with clean water, but it's actually they are going to, as it says here. Let me show you a slide here. It says here, there's this someone at the World Economic Forum who said that water, soil, and oxygen should not be indefinitely accessible. They are assets that should be included in global or worldwide economic balance sheets. They want to monetize it. So it's not true that they're not trying to make clean water and sanitation easily accessible. They want to make it more difficult. They want to make money out of water because it's a very precious resource. Remember that the merchants of the earth who are spoken about in Revelation chapter 18, they make money from the resources of the earth by being in cahoots with the papacy, which is described as Babylon the Great. So they want these resources for themselves, and they want to enslave mankind. They want mankind to pay for all these resources whilst they claim them. For instance, even in California, there's a family that has rights to most of the water in California, and Californians sometimes are deprived of water, especially those who own farms. They find it very difficult to actually water their farms and things like that. The rich want to have rights over the resources of the earth, whilst the little man on the street has to pay for everything. So this is the opposite of what they want to do. Let me just read the rest of this quote from this lady here. It says, yet the world, so this is not her speaking, but it says, yet the World Economic Forum is openly pushing to put the air you breathe on a corporate balance sheet. She actually said that here, water, soil, and oxygen should not be indefinitely accessible. And it says here, the World Economic Forum is openly pushing to put the air you breathe on a corporate balance sheet. Paying for oxygen is no longer a joke. It's their plan. This is dystopian insanity. And even recently, we've seen that they now want you to pay for sunshine. They're blocking the sun with their chemtrails. Now they want you to pay for the sun. And I think I shared a video on YouTube about that. And even Carl Vernon, who's on YouTube, also shared a video about that. But let me play the actual video where this lady is talking, and then I'll get back to you on the other side.
When we talk about capital, we tend to think only about financial capital, about cash, financial assets, but we know that's not the only value on which our economies depend. We know that every aspect of every part of the economy is fundamentally dependent on nature, as you highlighted. The air that we breathe, the water we drink, the soil, the oceans that we need for the food that we need to consume, the minerals that we need as inputs to technology and to infrastructure. And without these forms of value, these forms of natural capital, we won't have economies. They are the fundamental building blocks of our economies. But the ways, as you said, the ways in which we have grown our economies, our models of economic development, have been incredibly successful for global prosperity. But the unintended consequences of current models of growth are simply not sustainable on a finite planet. The amount of resource that we are drawing into our economies, Earth's resources, and the amount of pollution and waste that we're pumping out, whether that's through greenhouse gas emissions, whether that's sewage into our water, whether it's plastics into the ocean, is beyond the Earth's carrying capacity. And we know that that's leading, as you said, to very significant direct impacts for society, but very significant financial costs for the economy. You can look at that as you have and calculate that at a macro level. But the way that that's showing up as we're breaching these boundaries and breaching these limits and undermining nature is showing up in very practical ways that are showing up for financial risk for institutions. Lack of water is leading to disruption of operations, of supply chains where water is needed as an essential input for manufacturing or power production. The degradation of soil is leading to reduced agricultural yields. The decline of pollinator species is also having an impact on agriculture. So that's leading to direct financial risks for organizations, for businesses, and ultimately for investors. And as you said, ultimately the reason for this is at the moment the way that decisions are made on an everyday level within businesses and financial institutions is because we're looking only at financial data, financial metrics that are not factoring in nature. Nature is treated within the economy as though it's unlimited and predominantly as though it's free. And the risks and harms are simply not costed in financial terms. We can cost them at a macro level. They're not costed into day-to-day decision making. And the result is, as a consequence, we've put all of our economies at fundamental risk. We can't do business on a dead planet. If we're going to protect natural systems, one of the solutions is to bring nature onto the balance sheet, to bring nature into the ways that decisions are made within business, to allocate a value to it and to bring it into accounting and financial mechanisms.
Number 7 here, where they talk about affordable and clean energy, what they're doing is they are getting rid of the old ways, the old technology that was used to produce electricity. Even recently in Germany, they basically demolished a nuclear power station which was only 6 years old, and it took billions of dollars to build. They've just destroyed it because they want everyone to rely on solar panels and wind turbines and even underwater sea turbines to produce energy, which is actually not very reliable because at night you can't use solar panels. I have solar panels here at home, but you can't use solar panels at night. I know that there's new technology coming out. There are panels that potentially could produce electricity at night, but not as much as during the day. So the issue with all this new technology or these new ways of producing electricity is that they are not very reliable. What they should have done is they should have stuck with combined the new technology with the old technology and also give everyone a choice rather than take that choice away. So when they talk about affordable and clean energy, you tell me in the comment section whether electricity is cheaper now than before. It's actually more expensive. People are struggling to pay for their gas and electricity. That's just a fact. Okay, this is not true. It's the opposite. Number 8, decent work and economic growth. Jobs are being lost right now because of automation and the introduction of AI. We've got more and more robots doing work that was done by human beings before, whether it's cleaning outside in the street. I even saw a video recently of a man in China was cleaning on the street, and he saw there was a robot that came along and started cleaning next to him, and they looked at the robot and realized that very soon he's going to lose his job because the he's not going to be needed. The robot can do his job for him. So there's very high unemployment. So when you look at the arrow here, where it talks about decent work and economic growth, this arrow actually is basically showing that there's going to be a lot of unemployment due to automation and the introduction of AI. Number 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. All this is also being destroyed, even with the current war with Iran, where uh, oil refineries have been bombed and destroyed, and all the infrastructure to do with the production of oil and fuel has been destroyed, not just in the Middle East, but even in Russia as well. And there's even a place in Texas where there were an oil refinement facility was destroyed or caught fire a few days ago. So it's the opposite. They are one of the goals is of SDGs is that by 2050 they should achieve what's called net zero, where any form of combustion is going to be um, banned and it won't actually be allowed. So even the use of fireplaces, slowly, in places like London, they're stopping the use of fireplaces. That's what they want. They don't want us to drive our cars. They don't want us to fly, because anything that produces carbon they say is not good for the environment because it leads to climate change, which is obviously a scam. Number 10, reduced inequalities. No, what they're doing actually creates more inequalities, such as the introduction of these new genders. Recently, there's even an MP. An MP stands for Member of Parliament from Canada, who introduced a new acronym to do with minorities. Or everything that's happening is creating more inequality. 11, sustainable cities and communities. What they're talking about here is 5-minute, 10-minute, 15-minute, and 20-minute cities where you're kind of locked into a zone. For instance, in Oxford is being split into 6 zones, and whichever zone you find yourself in, you're not allowed to leave. Uh, they'll say everything is within 5 to 20 minutes walk or cycle, so you don't need to leave. If you need to go to church, your church will be near your home, your supermarket, your swimming pool, your gym. Everything basically you need will be within a walking distance, so you don't need to leave. So this is what they're talking about here, because they say that traveling actually produces carbon, which leads to climate change. So they don't want that. So this is enslavement. Okay, everything so far I've shown you is actually leads to enslavement. Um, God did not create us to be stuck in 15-minute cities. Number 12, responsible consumption and production. So here, for instance, they might be talking about the production of food. They want us to eat is the bugs, as Klaus Schwab says, you will eat the bugs. So this is what they want for us here. And who decides what is responsible consumption and production? This kind of potentially could also lead to the rationing of food, as right now we're seeing the rationing of fuel in certain countries, in Australia and in Sri Lanka, in other parts of the world. because they say that there's a fuel shortage, which they are causing by creating all this unnecessary war, okay, or starting this as an unnecessary war. This has got nothing to do with um, making you more free. This is about enslaving everyone. I've also said previously in one of my videos that if anything doesn't make you free, it's not from God. Okay, if anything doesn't make you free, it's not from God. So if it's not from God, who is it from? It's from the devil. This is about enslaving mankind. Those who will survive and remain are going to be enslaved, whereas for the rest, those who believe in the propaganda that Joseph Goebbels talk about, they are going to take the vaccines and actually self-select out of life and allow themselves to be killed, thinking that they're actually making that decision of themselves, but actually they're making that decision based on the propaganda that they've been taught in number 4 here at the indoctrination camps, also known as schools. Okay, number 13, climate action. Climate change is a hoax. Okay, if I show you the slide here, it says here 31,487 American scientists have signed this petition, including over 9,000 with PhDs. This petition says we urge the United States government to reject the worldwide warming agreement that was written in Kyoto, Japan in December 1997, and any other similar proposals. The proposed limits on greenhouse gases would harm the environment, hinder the advance of science and technology, and this is exactly the plan, and damage the health and welfare of mankind. By the way, just as a side note, who is it that what is it that resulted in mankind advancing scientifically and technologically over a short period of time? It was the Protestant Reformation which allowed mankind to be free to experiment and create all these inventions. Um, anyway, the rest of this says there is no convincing scientific evidence that human release of carbon dioxide, methane, or other greenhouse gases is causing or will in the foreseeable future cause catastrophic heating of the Earth's atmosphere and disruption of the Earth's climate. Moreover, there is substantial scientific evidence that increases in atmospheric carbon dioxide produce many beneficial effects upon the natural plant and animal environments of the Earth. This is true. When I was in school, not necessarily because everything that I was taught in school is true, but they actually taught us themselves that carbon dioxide is good for them. It's actually plant food, but now we're being told that carbon dioxide is bad, and that would include even the carbon dioxide that you exhale. So, just going back to the slide here, that was number 13, to do with climate action. And for those of us who are Christians, this is not our job, okay? We're not supposed to get involved in climate activism. Our job is to spread the gospel, to get as many people saved before the world comes to an end. So, just share this with you as well. It says the Club of Rome invented the perpetual environmental crisis. So this is from the book Limits to Growth. They want to limit growth, okay, because growth growth that we've had scientifically and technologically, which was referred to earlier, came about as a result of the Protestant Reformation, including the middle class, which number the first goal of in the SDGs is to is this the one I wanted to talk about? Yes, number 1 is about getting rid of poverty, but what they mean is they want to make everyone poor and basically destroy the middle class. This came about as a result of the Protestant Reformation. So it's actually the Jesuits who are behind all this, but they use front organizations to destroy everything that was created as a result of the Protestant Reformation. So this Club of Rome, you can see even there's a clue in the name, the Club of Rome, as in Rome in the Vatican. It said, in searching for a new enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that pollution, threat of global warming, which they now call climate change, because they realize that the temperatures are actually going down. It says water shortages, famine, and the like would fit the bill. All these dangers, of course, will be caused by human intervention that will require a global response. So human beings are the problem. Yeah, so that's not our job. Our job, if you go to, our job is to share the gospel. And if you go to Genesis, let's just look for this. Hopefully, it will come up quickly. So if you go here in Genesis 1:28, it says, in fact, no, Genesis 1:26. Let's start there. It says, and God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, over the cattle, over the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." God gave dominion to mankind. But what are they saying here in the SDGs? They're saying human intervention requires a global response, blaming mankind for all these problems, including water shortages, famine, and the like. Okay, yet God says He gave dominion to mankind to look after, to not only have dominion over the earth, but to look after the earth. Yeah, so verse 28 kind of repeats what verse 26 says. Okay, um, gave dominion, gave mankind. In fact, it says here, and God blessed them, and God said unto them, this is verse 28, God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply. But we're being told that the world is overpopulated, which is nonsense. And replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And I showed you earlier, I showed you a slide where there was a lady with a poster that said, save the planet, kill yourself, in total contradiction to what it says in the book of Genesis. Okay. So number 14, life below water. They don't care about life on Earth. There's also a video I showed recently of fish being vaccinated, which is obviously going to cause basically poisoning the fish. Okay, they don't care about life below water or life on Earth. They've also Dr. Ardis actually was interviewed and said that there are millions of animals in the US that have been, uh, given the poke, the mRNA poke. So now even hunters that go out hunting thinking they're getting organic meat will be hunting deer that's been vaccinated with mRNA spike proteins. Okay, they don't care about life on Earth, whether in the water or on land. And I don't know what kind of weaponry they're using, but there have been farms in the US and outside the US where animals, especially cows, have just turned out, have just died overnight. There was a farm in the US, I think, a year or two ago, where I think it was over 2,000 cows were found dead the next day. And then there was another country where sheep just died. The causes are not known. So, and of course, we've got the destruction of food processing plants, especially in the US. Recently, there was a farm where they were producing eggs that also got burnt. So this is all to do with the destruction of the food supply chain to make us reliant on the state. Okay. Number 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. We have a war with Iran right now, and totally unnecessary war, which is causing so much death and destruction. And I think I already mentioned earlier, but I'll mention it again, that since the establishment or the creation of the United Nations after World War II, the United Nations hasn't even stopped one war. We still have wars going on in Sudan, and the war between Ukraine and Russia, and in Myanmar, which is hardly reported on, and in other parts of the world. We have wars going all over the place, but all over the place, but no one in the UN and all these institutions are doing nothing to stop it. Okay, so it's the opposite. They want war, because war is also another way of depopulating the earth. Number 17, partnerships for the goals. And I think they're talking about different organizations coming together to achieve these SDGs. Okay, all these organizations, such as the WEF and the Bilderbergers and um, whether it be the CFR, Trilateral Commission, and many others, they are not uh, here for the good of mankind. They want to reduce the population and bring about all this, which is not freeing mankind. If you see anyone wearing a badge that looks like this, I've seen heads of state and other powerful people wearing this badge, including Bill Gates. This represents all this. These colors, okay, represent all this here. The 17 goals of the United Nations, and I think there are about 17 of these little shapes here that make this circle. So this is what the so-called Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations are all about. It's the opposite of what they say. So if everyone was wondering what this is all about, or you actually believed what they said, what they say is not true. Okay, it's inverted. It's the opposite of what they say. But yeah, that's what I wanted to share in this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
In our nation and globally. And did we solve that? Like, did we actually manage to vaccinate everyone in the world? No. So highlighting water as a global commons and what it means to work together and see it both out of that kind of global commons perspective, but also the self-interest perspective, because it does have that parallel. It's not only important, but it's also important because we haven't managed to solve those problems, which had similar attributes. And water is something that people understand. You know, climate change is a bit abstract. Some people understand it really well. Some understand it a bit. Some just don't understand it. Water, every kid knows how important it is to have water. When you're playing football and you're thirsty, you need water. So there's also something about really getting citizen engagement around this and really, in some ways, experimenting with this notion of the common good. Can we actually deliver this time in ways that we have failed miserably other times? And hopefully we won't keep failing on the other things, but anyway.